Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Free State Podcast. I'm your host, Brian, along with my co host, Scott. And we have an awesome guest tonight. We actually had her speak a few months ago at the Anne Arundel County Libertarians meeting. And as far as I know, she's probably the most successful activist that I know, and probably the most successful activist in the state outside of some crazy leftists that push leftist agendas. So I'm going to bring her up on now, Allie Rack. Allie, how you doing?
Hi, how are you guys?
I'm doing great.
Doing great.
Enjoying your view. I'm going to be looking at your view the whole time. That's nice.
Good.
Thanks for coming on and do a quick introduction about yourself and how you kind of got into activism.
Okay, my name is Allie Rock, and I hail from Charles County. The last 15 years or so. Originally from Buffalo, go Bills, and I. How did I get into activism? I guess sometimes I tell people that I've always been kind of a pushy, bossy person, like a leader. Because in like preschool, my friends didn't want to play with me because I was bossy, So, but what really happened was, say about 2015, 2016-ish, I had just a life-altering conversion on an issue, we'll say, and felt pretty hopeless about it in the state of Maryland. But I was given some new information. I was kind of equipped with, an arsenal of good persuasive talking points. I got connected with the right organization, and I learned how to be a citizen lobbyist, basically. And being very concerned with wanting to be a better citizen lobbyist, like a better advocate, is what got me into more.
Muted. Allie, you muted. You muted yourself.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
You're fine. You're fine.
Hit the button, or it got mad at me. I don't know. This program is giving me trouble tonight. So I don't know at what point I muted myself, but I always am trying to be better at whatever I'm doing. So what I noticed is that when I got involved in the issue that I was advocating for, I noticed that I met tons and tons of people that cared about this issue. And yet there weren't very many people that would come to like the local chapter that I was getting involved with to try to get more involved and do more and feel more productive about it. So I started studying things like persuasion. And what I found was not that we should be approaching things like we do anything kind of like political or philosophical, where we just beat people's heads, over it, but like to really approach it more like a marketer, more like advertising. So I actually started to implement in my own activism and in my own advocacy sales tactics, really marketing. So how do you get someone to make a purchase? How do you get someone, to buy your book or whatever? Do those same things to get people to take action during a legislative session, or to come to your conference or your rally or whatever. So that's how I got into activism. Like once I actually, I started, I don't know. This is so controversial on a libertarian podcast to say, but I guess
we're not a libertarian podcast.
So okay, good.
Go ahead.
So I'm always careful with libertarian audiences because I got involved in the pro-life movement, and in Maryland we are the state of death. So it seemed pretty hopeless, but it was when I got involved in the legislative session with other kind of seasoned pro-life activists that I was like, okay, there's some tricks of the trade here, and whoever can learn the tricks of the trade wins. So I am a competitive person. I wanted to be the best at the tricks of the trade. So at this point, I've been doing it long enough that I'm inventing some of the tricks of the trade. So that's like my background. That's how I got involved. And then as you even found me at all because once COVID hit, um I was like beside myself, with everything that was going on. I thought, how can we not stop this? And so that was sort of that the last 3 years has been basically pushing back on the COVID tyranny in Maryland. And that's how I just got kind of known in the libertarian space, because I led a very successful reopen movement in Charles County.
So going back to your the pro-life activism, like, obviously we're in Maryland. If anybody knows Maryland, they know that, like you said, we are very pro-abortion here in the state of Maryland. Did you have any like note? And I'm not trying to like get you to like say you didn't have successes, but did you have successes in what you were trying to accomplish with your activism in the pro-life movement?
Yes, that's actually how I got good at what I was doing, is because we saw wins in what we were doing. So, going back to like 2015, 2016, I read a book, Persuasive Pro-Life by Trent Horn. And I wasn't always pro-life. I was very pro-choice in college, and I hadn't really met anyone that had like very persuasive arguments. And everything about Trent Horn's style and how he takes every pro-choice argument, breaks it down, shows you how to respond. I was like, pro-life people want this. They must not know about it, like they must, because I've never heard really great pro-life arguments, that kind of thing. So what I did was I actually started a conference. I reached out to the author of the book, and I invited him to come speak. I work at a church, so I have a very supportive boss, and so I asked him, could we host a conference here? That would save me capital, basically. So for a year, we planned a conference, and we started book studies with that book to get people excited to meet the author. So we started book studies at multiple churches around the area, in Charles County, Southern Maryland, but we had people come from all over the state. And what we did was we really wanted to put that conference kind of really close to the election, and so that people in 2016, so that people were thinking about the pro-life movement. But really what it did was it reignited a lot of people's passion for the cause, so that they wanted to get more involved. So my first win was that conference. And what was funny was I go big or go home. So I was like, we're gonna have 450 people at this conference, because that was how big my church hall, that's how many people they could fit. And I had just, there was like this women's group that had hosted this like Marian like convocation. It's a Catholic church, like a year before, and they packed it out. It was like 500 people there, and I'm like, oh, easily we'll get that many pro-life people. But I learned pretty quickly that no, that's actually not how that works. But what was funny was we're a week out from the conference. I've got 220 people registered, and I'm just like beside myself, like a failure. And I've told everybody we're going to have 450 people. And my husband told me, you are the only one who thinks 200 people at a pro-life conference is a loss, is a failure. So that's kind of like just my attitude about everything, is like, if it's going to take, I want 1,000 signatures on a campaign. I want 50 people in person at a senator's office. Like I want 200 people at a rally, that kind of thing. And I don't even get close usually to those goals, but those are my goals. And so that's basically how I always work. So in the pro-life movement in Maryland, what we've done very much behind the scenes like that, and that's the way that legislative wins happen. This is where good activism happens. It's the stuff you just don't even know, because it doesn't even make, it never makes it out of committee. So it doesn't even get to a floor to get, to be voted on or anything like that. So I was part of a coalition that we kept, we have defeated physician-assisted suicide every year since 3 years before I got involved, and then every year since. And so legislative session, I would say 2017 and on, I've been heavily involved. In 2019, physician assisted suicide passed the House of delegates in Maryland, and my coalition, my particular chapter, our senator in Charles County was a co-sponsor to that bill, and we flipped him from a co-sponsor to a no vote, which that legislation died on the Senate floor on a tie 23-23 vote. So that was one of our wins. And then up until this year, unfortunately, we actually killed the abortion amendment in committee each year from 2019 through 2022. So unfortunately, it passed this last session. So now we just got to work on killing it at the ballot box, which is going to be a lot harder.
Yeah.
Is that so? Just on that, that's going to be a ballot amendment coming up in Maryland?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and is that just a simple majority of voters?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So most ballot initiatives win just because of the way they're written. Most people don't know what it's about. So
they always sound so good when you just read them, but then if you don't think about them,
I mean, I think the closest ballot initiative to actually being defeated anytime recently was like the PG County like casino, and like the bringing casinos, and that was like just tens of millions of dollars spent on both sides, but all the money came from the gambling industry. But yeah, that was like the closest one to losing, and I still think it won by like almost 60%.
Wow.
So moving on to the COVID thing, this is mostly what you spoke to us about.
Yeah.
So go into the COVID thing, because that's really, I mean, look, we can say that it's not going to happen again, but it very well could.
Oh yeah, if it happens again, under our current governor, it's going to happen again.
Oh yeah.
So what happened was kind of seeing the lead up to COVID, like the run, the months of kind of build up. My husband and I were like, we're media junkies, we're political junkies. So it's like, is this really going to be is this really going to be a big deal? Like, my brother's a doctor. So I was asking him, like, they're saying like huge disruptions are coming. Like, what do you think? Is this real? And he was like, well, it won't be Spanish flu, but it's definitely going to be worse than H1N1, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so I remember when they're talking, I was in Annapolis the week that they started to talk, when all those, like, we got a lockdown, when those talking points began to ramp up. I was in Annapolis lobbying against the abortion amendment. Actually, we killed it that year. And, it was like when people were saying, like, don't shake hands and wash your hands a lot, don't touch your face, that kind of thing. And then it was like, Larry Hogan came out the next day and was like, we're closing schools and no more than 250 people and that sort of thing. So I think there's about maybe a day when my husband and I were like, okay, maybe this is as serious as it sounds. And then I think after like the first weekend, when data started coming out of Italy, we're like, this is killing old people with like 3 comorbidities. You know what I mean? Like, what,
80-plus-year-old people.
Yeah. So it was a really stressful situation for me because I felt entirely hopeless. It was like all I could do was argue with people online, and that wasn't working.
That never works.
No, it never works. So I lost, a lot of friends stepped away. Some have stepped back, some stepped away permanently. They thought I was seriously having a mental break, which maybe I was. I don't know. I was like apoplectic.
I think the sane people were having a mental breakdown.
Yeah, that's true. That's
what it was.
We both were. So it was. I tried behind the scenes lobbying kind of stuff, like reaching out to my senator when our county wanted to do masks. They actually wanted to implement it first. Like, it was like April 12th of that year. They wanted to do masks in like pharmacies and grocery stores, and then and like it was going to be optional, and we kind of pushed back on that, or I did. I don't know. I wrote a lot of emails, and but then Larry Hogan did it, by executive order on April 15th or something. So that like blew it up. And that was the thing, is like no one could get to Hogan. He was just like, he was running for president. So, there's no stopping him. So it was when we started to reopen when I really stepped into I just was like, and from henceforth my life shall never be the same, So like my husband and kids went to the first like Reopen Maryland protest, which was like the car rally around the state house. And they were getting ready to have another rally in Annapolis with like Brandon Strzok and Scott Pressler, I think, were coming in. And I was planning on going to that. And that was when Larry Hogan like announced out of nowhere, like, we're going to phase 1, stage 1 of phase 1, which was like going to be nothing, right? It was like retail can open at 50%, churches at 50%, and you can leave your home, right? That was like stage 1, phase 1. And what happened was he did that. You remember when he did that Pontius Pilate moment where he was like, I'm opening the state, but local jurisdictions can go more restrictive. And so in Charles, looking at the data, looking at the dashboard, almost all of our cases and deaths were in nursing homes. So for us, we just thought this is a slam dunk. The data is completely on our side. They held an emergency meeting of our commissioner board to, make the decision, and they had all their experts, there ready to present. And we just thought it was a formality. And I watched the meeting for 2 hours, and it was like EMS said we're ready, the hospital said they're ready, they've surge capacity. The sheriff's department said they're ready. They did. Department of health was like, yeah, we're ready, we're absolutely ready. And then our commissioners were just like, well, Prince George's is staying closed. They're our neighbor to the north, because Charles is no longer a part of Southern Maryland. Apparently, we're Southern Prince George's. And so if we open up, PG County might come down here, and then it'll spread the virus, and we can't do that. So people are scared. So let's just take 2 more weeks to educate business owners on on how to keep safe, that sort of thing. Just 2 more weeks would be a good pause. And, it was a 3-2 vote. We have a 5-member commissioner board, so 3-2 vote, and they voted to stay closed. And that was it. I was like, I'm not staying in my home anymore. And this needs to be there needs to be a huge pushback on, I have to lead it, because I'm the seasoned activist. In my mind, no one else could do it. So that's basically how it started. I started Reopen Charles County like on my phone. We were at my office watching the meeting because I had to get out of my house every day. I homeschool my kids, and they were like going bananas. My husband's a teacher, so he was like Zoom schooling, so it was like, let's just go to my office every day, just to, like, get out of the house. And so we were driving home, and he was driving, and I was like on my phone. I made like a quick graphic on like Canva, like app on my phone, and just like started a group and just started inviting the world. So that's how we got started. We had a protest, we had a rally within 24 hours. It coincided with the Reopen Maryland rally. So it was like I was in Annapolis in the first part of the day, and then back in La Plata for the evening. And we had like 1,000 members by midnight. I had a website up and running with a petition like before the morning hours. And we just spent 2 weeks like organizing. People were like, okay, we don't know who this chick is, but she seems to be saying good things. So that's how we got started. That's like, the long story. But over the next, the next year, we were, we hit them so hard with that first 2-week delay. The pushback was so fierce. They just they didn't see it coming, that we got them to agree to every stage reopening after that. It was like every time Hogan announced a new phase and they announced an emergency meeting to review it, we would hit them with 200 to 500 emails, phone calls, whatever it was. So I do consider that the 2 weeks was the only loss that Reopen ever suffered, because my goal was to get them to reverse course early, and they didn't. But after that, it was, yep, we're voting. It was like 5-0 each time to go with the next phase. And that happened for the next year. And we even assisted on some state level campaigns. Like I had some friends in Annapolis who were able to get meetings with like Lieutenant Governor Rutherford, or get something in front of Hogan, and really petition him. And so whenever that happened, we'd hit with more phone calls, more emails. We'd kind of lead the state on that. There were some other things there were really close calls, like Thanksgiving of 2020. We were able to keep our health officer from getting her way. She wanted to limit all gatherings to no more than 25. So we were pretty successful when Larry Hogan lifted the masks in May of 2021. I was just like, okay, we're going back to normal. I was ready to just, okay, we've been successful advocates. Well, maybe we can start to work on some other things in our community, but I think like reopen is over. And then our commissioners in August of 2021, it kind of end of July, they started whispering, Delta, we got to do something about Delta. I was on vacation. I was in Hilton Head when they voted 5-0 to declare their own state of emergency and re-implement a mask mandate. So that became the rest of my 2021 into January 2022 was fighting. Well, I guess March 2022 was fighting the rest of the masks. So that's the next phase. I don't know if you want me to stop there.
No, yeah. So I know I asked you this when we were talking in person, but what was social media a significant part in?
Huge.
Okay, so I asked you this in person, so what like tactics, what social media tactics did you use to really kind of spread it? Do you think the message kind of spread itself, or the movement kind of spread itself, or do you think that it was kind of something that you did that kind of really like pushed it out there and really got it to gain traction?
That's a good question. I would say it was definitely both. Not an either or. I think specifically because of COVID and we're all stuck in our houses, that everyone was online. Just everyone was on Facebook all day, every day. So that was easy. It was pretty easy to find people willing to jump into a Facebook group, follow a Facebook page at the time. But I did push things out there quite a bit. I'm kind of a student of social media. I've been on Facebook since practically day one. It started at Harvard and the Ivy Leagues. The next round of people invited to Facebook included my university. So I've been a user for a really long time. I'm really sorry my newborn woke up. My infant woke up. So okay. I think they're going to maybe walk him into the other room. So I just know how to use Facebook. I know how to kind of beat the algorithm and that sort of thing. So we use social media a lot. We used a closed Facebook group to organize. And that's what got eyes on things. That's where I put action alerts, and people were active. They knew that that's where the action was. Anytime something COVID, masks, anything related came up, they were just logging in, checking into that group. We have a couple moles in there, probably still to this day. I haven't found all of them. So anytime I got doxxed on another community page, everybody would be in my group like, what's going on now? But I also use Facebook Messenger a lot. Sorry. This is the second military plane that's gone over this cottage. We never get planes.
I've noticed I had a jet fly over my house yesterday.
Yeah.
And then the military helicopter. I don't know if they're moving stuff around. There was like a cargo
plane this morning.
Notice a lot of movement lately.
Yeah.
Notice a lot of movement lately. I'm not saying anything, but I've just noticed a lot more movement than usual lately.
Yeah, I know. I got hit by that supersonic burst the other week. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay, sorry. That was like okay. So I would use Facebook Messenger. Like anytime I had like an email campaign or a petition or a post that I needed visibility on, like I was in Messenger, like sending it, to people so that they could see it, take action, that sort of thing. So social media was huge. Facebook specifically, and I think it might vary by area, but it was very successful. I think in Maryland. There's just a lot of people there's a lot of community groups, there's a lot of local Facebook pages and that sort of thing. So and then reopen Maryland. Here comes another one. Oh my gosh, it's a jet. It's like really loud. Sorry. So I don't know, other areas might be better with Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, but Facebook was definitely where it's at for us. And that was so the closed group for organizing, and then a public facing business page for that's where things can go viral, you know, like they can share. And it's funny though, even though in our group, you know, we had like 1,500 very active members, and our page was getting seen, you know, by 2, 3, 4,000 people. When we started to prevail in the mask fight, it was still, there were just a fraction of Charles County citizens that even knew what was going on. And it wasn't until my members started blasting like the government page about how they were about to lose in court, and this was the only reason they were, you know, changing the mask order and all that stuff, that people were like, what? There was a lawsuit? What? There's a group? So it's interesting. It's like social media is big, but it is also small. It can be, it's crazy. But yeah,
it is kind of crazy. That's like where we have our meeting. The owner, he's just appealed to federal court because it was over Stuart Pittman's, the Anne Arundel County executive, his orders for shutting down businesses in the first place.
Yeah.
And the state court said that it was in his right to do it, so they're appealing it to the federal court. And you know, here we are. It's, you know, it's June of 23, and you know, this lawsuit I think came up in the summer of 21 initially. I think Nathan Volke picked it up to be the representative for the owner of Bellinopoly. And now they're all the way going to federal court, and he's selling the restaurant at this point. You know, he said it killed him. The whole COVID thing. And then, but he's still fighting it in federal court, and nobody knows this, that, you know, a local business owner is taking Stuart Pittman to federal court over COVID stuff. Here we are almost 2 years later.
Yeah. So that was a thing during COVID. A lot of people I learned a lot about lawsuits. So what we did was, when our commissioners voted 5-0 to, you know, re-implement a mask mandate, you know, like one of 2 in all of the state, you know, it was like Prince George's County and Charles, you know, with a mask mandate. We crowdfunded the retainer for a lawyer, and we sued them. And I learned a lot about court cases and the legal system and everything. And I wondered, a lot of people spoke it out loud, and I wondered, where are the courts? Like, where is the judicial system that's supposed to be a check on this kind of unchecked power? And I learned it's not like the courts will just step in and be like, it's not like they're watching and going, that's illegal. You can't do that. I'm going to put an injunction. There has to be a plaintiff. There has to be standing, you know, and it was crazy. So what we did was, we brought our suit on behalf of basically small businesses, right? But Reopen Charles was just a Facebook group up till then. I formed an LLC and created membership, basically, requirements. And so therefore I was able to bring the suit as a member organization. I was representing my members, which were private citizens, small businesses, you know, public school parents, whatever, you know, whatever we needed them to be at the time of the suit. But that was basically, I mean, even that was, my attorneys were like worried it would just easily be dismissed, because I was not a business owner myself. So it was a lot of work we could have easily had small businesses just join as plaintiffs, like just be co-plaintiffs. Like we were handling the retainer. It would have been cost them nothing. And the situation with just, they were hanging on by a thread. They didn't want to be doxxed or have their lives ruined over it. They were totally fine for my life to be ruined, just so everybody's clear on that. But yeah, it was a serious situation. And so we prevailed. I mean, it was a miracle how we kept it alive in court long enough for them to, you know, have to basically tuck tail and run away from their order. But I learned a lot. I gotta say, like, I think a lot of things would end, a lot of stuff that we object to, if lawyers were a little bit more accessible, not so expensive, because
they had a little bit more of a backbone.
Yes, exactly, to take on pro bono or whatever. Because I mean, there's just so much, I think, that people are like, well, I just can't afford an attorney, so I guess I'm just gonna have to let this injustice completely slide.
Yeah. Well, I had I don't think you know this, but my audience knows. I had the FBI visit my house a couple months ago,
Not
and
shocked.
and I called a lawyer, a federal lawyer, and just the retainer was $7,000, and I was like, ooh, well,
Yeah.
if they're going to get me, I guess they're going to get me, because I don't have $7,000.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I the lawyer fees can be exorbitant at times. So like in not just with the COVID thing, but just as far as kind of your civilian lobbying, do you find a bit of pushback, like if you're not a subject matter expert, right? So like as far as COVID goes, did you have like doctors that were like on your team that were, testifying in front of, your whoever you were testifying or trying to lobby? Did you have those subject matter experts?
Mhm.
And do you feel like that is absolutely necessary in order for them to kind of take you serious?
That's such a good question. So there's two different areas, right? So there's like the court of public opinion. There's like when you're pushing back against your legislators, or the lawmakers. Depending on where in the process. No, you don't need to have subject matter experts. You need to be you have to have good talking points. You have to be good at rhetoric, really.
Mhm.
Because that's in a public hearing, excuse me, in front of your lawmakers, that's your best tool, right? Okay, who can speak well. In the court itself, they want subject matter experts. So there was a lot of, like divine providence that was working in our favor. So we had two attorneys throughout the Reopen Charles lawsuit. Our first attorney was actually Dan Cox, who was a friend at the time, and we crowdfunded his retainer, and then he brought on Ed Hartman from Hartman Law. And then after we prevailed and reopened, and I helped sue the Maryland State Department of Education, Ed Hartman was our attorney for that. And let's just say, Ed Hartman, when I heard you say what your lawyer would have cost, like I was like, that sounds affordable compared to Ed Hartman.
Holy crap.
But he's the best. I mean, he does a really good job. So, and the reason that Dan and Ed were even working together in the first place was because of an Anne Arundel County lawsuit, Christmas of 2020. They represented restaurants and small business owners. So they were just well acquainted, you know what I mean? And so they had I got to say this, pro bono, they had Dr. Jay Bhattacharya as their subject matter expert. And subject matter experts can be more costly than attorneys even, because they have to withstand direct and cross-examination, right? So Dr. Jay Bhattacharya was basically every time we went to court, he was on standby to zoom in. And for the MSDE lawsuit, he started doing affidavits, and testimony, written testimony. And then what we would also do to support our, basically to support our pleadings, you want to submit affidavits. You want to get people that are saying, yes, I also am having this problem. Like, I am testifying that there is harm here. And so when we were claiming that masks, in Charles County were harming small businesses, the county would just say, well, look, revenue's never been, tax revenue's never been greater. So what we would do is all we had to do was find a small business owner that could say, I've lost this revenue, or this event was closed down and I wasn't able to be a vendor there. I've lost customers, or we also had regular citizens who say, I am not doing business in Charles County anymore. I am going to Calvert County or Anne Arundel, and I'm spending this amount of money. Like, I've spent this since, the start of the mask mandate. I have spent zero in Charles County, that sort of thing. If people were taking trips 35 minutes up to Alexandria, to go to a maskless grocery store there, then we put that in the affidavits. So that's kind of how it goes. So it's like when you're testifying before a legislator, basically citizen power is the most important at that point. But when you're testifying in court, it's got to be top notch.
Right. So I see your title down below your name, the Activist Academy. So what can you tell us about that?
Okay, sorry, my infant's screaming in the background, so I'll mute in between. But so I am kicking off the Activist Academy. This has been something that's been on my mind and heart to do for a really, really long time. I have really honed like the craft of effective activism, not just like holding a sign and getting arrested, right? But like what works, and so I am moving into teaching. I want to share this craft with others. So I am launching the Activist Academy. I just actually closed my founding members launch, so I'm beta testing with a small group, but working on launching overall. It will be a membership, so it'll be still working out what the content is exactly going to be, but basically I'll be starting with my 5 principles of winning, which I will give you guys a link today to. You can get on my email list, anybody in your audience, and get the ebook that I've created, the 5 principles of winning. So that's based on a presentation I gave for the Tom Woods School of Life in January. So working on that. I'd love to keep you updated on what that will be. But that is going to be it's going to be community based and it's going to be learning based. So it's going to be me teaching, but it's also going to be that community aspect where it's like, we're going to help. People are going to get into the group and they're going to interact and they're going to help each other. So, Brian, I always think of you and your backyard chickens. And I'm like, what if like 10 people could help him? Like, okay, I tried this with the town council and it didn't work. Like, what could I do next? And like having, like masterminds come together. So that's ideally what it's going to be.
Well, keep me in mind because our county council is about to go on break here in a couple weeks. So I'm thinking after they come back from break, that's when I'm going to pick it up. And
yeah.
God, my yard has just taken forever to get ready for summer, and the pool it's just family life is just completely kind of taken over this spring. But I plan on picking that up for sure. I still have the group and everything because I took a lot what you were telling me to heart when you were in person, and let me share this link real quick, and is it going to copy? Yeah, okay, and I just been thinking about it, and I've been trying. I've been kicking myself because I want to feel like I should be doing more, but I just can't. There's only so much time that you can do, right?
So that's actually like a really good point that is part of kind of one of my principles of winning, that like sometimes it's hard when things are not pressing, to really get momentum. So the best opportunity to be an activist and to do anything is when there's a crisis happening. And you have to be okay with the fact that like when the crisis has passed, like people aren't really going to follow anymore. So like right now there's no crisis with backyard chicken. So
yeah, I know. And I feel like I kind of missed my window of opportunity with the exorbitant egg prices. So I'm like, that's another reason I'm kicking myself. I'm like, damn, I wish I would have just got on it right when I initially started it. I wish I would have got on it and started going to county council meetings, but it is what it is. I'm going to keep trying. I think it's a thing that'll pass. It'll make sense. I kind of have my rhetoric that I plan on talking about in mind and things like that. Cause that's really what it's all about, rhetoric. Like you were saying, my rhetoric is, to the left, it's going to be that this enfranchises lower income people that have small properties that don't have the property to legally, according to current zoning laws, own chickens. And then to the right, my rhetoric is this is not a privilege that you were given to by the government. This is your right to own an animal in your backyard to make your family a little bit more self-sufficient. So
absolutely. There you go.
That's kind of my rhetoric, and that's kind of what I'm going with. And I have a couple breeders that are in my back pocket and stuff like that. So
Yep, there's your expert.
I got my subject matter experts and things like that. So I'm working it. It's
You're
not
learning.
like completely stagnant or anything, but I'm getting there.
I guess
so.
Hey,
go ahead, Scott.
on that, it's like, do you have a good relationship with like maybe a veterinarian? Because I know one of the criticisms of having backyard chickens is always, disease spread and things like that.
That is a good thing to bring up, and there's about 4 poultry veterans in the entire state of Maryland.
Okay.
So it'd be really, really hard. Like if my chicken were to get sick today, it's done, right? They're like months out to get your chicken seen by a vet. It's pretty insane. So Allie, I don't want to keep you from your family anymore. I really appreciate you stepping away from your vacation and in that awesome looking little cottage that you're in. It's so cool. So I really appreciate you coming on, taking time from your family. Get back to them. Enjoy the rest of your vacation down to Oceanhorn. And anything else you want to shout out? Anything you want to put out there?
No, I'm just thanks for having me on, and I know you've been trying to get me on for months now. So I had to deliver a baby and get through the newborn stage and all that.
That's a little important.
Happy to come on another time and even really talk about what we can do to make Maryland the free state again. I really do. I mean, I had the opportunity to move, leave, like seek out, freer pastures or whatever. But, there's just something about Maryland that I really think is worth saving. And so it's nice to be connected with, anybody who really has a heart for this, but just wants to hone their techniques a little bit. Like, let's work together. Let's do this. That's kind of
absolutely. I wouldn't mind some of my libertarian friends to get into your academy once you get that up and running. I think that'd be a really cool thing to do.
Absolutely. You know what? When we launch to the whole public, I'll come back on. We'll do an overview and
hell yeah,
maybe give your listeners some sort of Tom Woods like promotional deal.
There you go. I wanted to say one more thing, but I lost it. Oh no. This is what I wanted to say. I said not every libertarian is pro-choice, right? They're just against the government telling them what to do. Right. So keep that in mind if you ever want to come join the Libertarian Party. You'll be more than welcome to join us. But thank you for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your vacation.
Thank you.
And I would love to follow up with you once you get your academy going. Reach out to me once you tell me it's live or anything like that. You sent the link, so I'll be
get on my list so you know.
Yep, and I'll be doing that, and I would love to do a follow-up, maybe end of the summer, early fall, something like that, and see where everything's going. I'd love to talk to you again.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Allie.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Allie Rock. I pronounced her name wrong. Me and Scott got to talk to her in person a couple months ago, and she's just a lot of people that kind of have their vision of an activist, that it's like some sort of like crazy zealot kind of person, and she just couldn't be just a more normal person. And it was nice to see, like in my mind, activist, yes, I consider myself an activist, but in my mind, I'm still like prejudiced that activist is like some like blue-haired leftist that's like screaming in the face of somebody, right? And to see kind of a more mature, she's a mother, wife, professional, and she's an activist. It's kind of like reassuring that like, you can be a normal person and be an activist, or activists can be normal people. I guess I should put it that way.
Yeah, I'd just say I think the main difference there is the caricature of an activist is not necessarily tactics that are really effective, whereas what Allie's doing, it seems to be effective and actually affecting the outcome.
Yeah, she's normal, so it helps.
Yeah,
it really does help. All right, well, I guess I'm ready to wrap it up. How about you, Scott? You got anything else you want to get off your chest?
Oh,
maybe save it for
don't give me
another episode.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Free State Podcast. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, YouTube. I have stopped uploading to Rumble and Odyssey. It just just one more thing I have to do. It's not really beneficial right now. But if you would really, really like us to be on Rumble, let me know and I'll put it on Rumble. Odyssey, you have credits. If you don't know this, you kind of have their coin essentially. And every time you upload a video, you have to spend your balance of your coin. And if you're not getting a certain amount of views or interactions, then you don't get any payment back. So like I'm just kind of saving the balance that I do have for maybe an episode that's like really good, really big or something like that, upload it to there or something like that. So if you've been trying to find our newest episodes on Rumble or Odyssey, that's why. But give us a follow and watch stuff. And like I said, if you really want us on there again, I'll start re-uploading there. But Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you listen or stream at, please give us a Joe says black flag. Is that a black flag?
Yes,
it's
it
a black
is.
flag.
Yeah.
On the thing, it looks gray. Yeah, anarchy's the best, but sometimes it doesn't pay dividends. So yeah, if you're on Spotify or Apple, please give us a 5-star review. Write us a review if you can. It helps with the algorithm. Same thing with YouTube. Facebook can F off, and Twitter, it kind of just is what it is. I don't think there's any really bumping that up other than going and following the Twitter page and retweeting and liking the posts. So with that, everybody have a good night. Thanks for watching. Joe, thanks for your little black flag comment at the end. It raised my spirits, and everybody have a good night.